The enigma surrounding the birthplace of Queen. What was the location of the Queen's birthplace? Is it possible that they've come to the incorrect place? The allegations that the home was damaged during the Blitz are accurate, or are they? The Queen was born on April 21, 1926, in Mayfair, London, at 17, Bruton Street. Instead of a castle, mansion, or even a hospital, the townhouse was located on a bustling London street. Only a few weeks before she was born, her parents had moved into the mansion her Scottish paternal ancestors, the Earl and Countess of Strathmore, formerly owned. The Queen was not anticipated to become monarch since she was the younger sister of the King's eldest son and hence was not expected to inherit the throne. The home was damaged during the Blitz and was eventually destroyed. Wikipedia notes is one of several examples. However, papers found in the British Library and other repositories suggest that the 18th-century mansion had already been demolished before the conflict began. The Queen's first residence was completed by property developers, who were even more persistent than the airstrikes. Debris from nearby buildings began to be removed about 1937, including one at 17 Bruton Street and several others that extended all the way to Berkeley Square. Canadian Pacific Railway had envisioned a hotel on the site that was later used for an office and retail complex. This was a period when architectural preservation was not taken so seriously. Demolition crews demolished 20 of the most historic mansions in London, without remorse, according to one source at the time. Sir Muirhead Bone, a war artist, created a heartbreaking image depicting the demolition of the exquisite ancient structures. Current Berkeley Square house operators Estree claim a new structure on the property was formerly home to the aviation ministry in the years leading up to World War II. It's also common knowledge that the Queen's birthplace is currently the location of a Chinese restaurant. That's not everything, either. There is just one Hakkasan in London, and it is located at 17 Bruton Street. However, the same can be said about a whole block's worth of boarded-up offices. Next door is a glass-fronted corporate entrance and reception. All of this new commercial space was constructed on top of what was once a row of single-family homes dating back to the 1920s. It may not be a romantic narrative, but the somewhat anonymous corporate entry into certain offices of Berkeley Square House is the closest to the location of the original 17 Bruton Street, a side entrance. Bundles of ancient files and architectural designs featuring Art Deco typography may be found in Clerkenwell's London Metropolitan Archive. They reveal that the vanished mansion would have been located around this entry area, with the facade extending down to what is now a Bugatti and Bentley auto store. Westminster City Council has verified this, stating that the boundary lines of the old homes on the opposite side of the street can be mapped against the borders of the new developments. The royal link is a tremendously intriguing discussion topic, which goes over great with our visitors, says General Manager Sharon Whiteman of Hakkasan, a Japanese restaurant in New York City. However, the glass and steel front of the building next door has supplanted most of the Queen's former residence. The birthplace is commemorated by two plaques on a neighboring wall, one of which is from Westminster Council. Because the buildings have been remodeled, they have been relocated to another part of the original site. According to a representative of English heritage, official blue plaques must be placed on original structures, and no plaques honoring deceased individuals are ever placed on display. According to Westminster's planning department, this would have been a first-rate London home, 5 bays wide, but the really affluent would have been a step further up, in the sort of mansions that had names rather than numbers and bays. Her royal grandparents were there on the day of the Queen's birth in 1926. Princess Anne was described as a tiny darling by Queen Mary in her journal entry as having a wonderful complexion and nice light hair. William Joynson Hicks, the Home Secretary at the time, made a dash for it, since it was still customary for the Home Secretary to be present at a royal birth at the time. He was dubbed Mussolini Minor because of his reputation as an authoritarian. The Queen's mother, Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon, set off in April 1923 for her nuptials to the Duke of York, who was then Prince of York, from this mansion. They came back nearly 3 years later for their first kid. The Harley Street office of speech therapist Lionel Logue, who helped the future King of England overcome his stutter beginning in 1926, was also within easy walking distance of the property. In this region of London, there's a portfolio of property valued at $5 billion owned by the royal family of Abu Dhabi, which still owns the location. Bruton Street's original 17 Bruton Street was handled by Howard Frank, the co-founder of Knight Frank estate firm, in the early 1930s.